Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to Watches with Dennis and a somewhat spontaneous live stream. I did decide to do it a few hours ago, so not totally shocking. Hopefully, I have all my things muted, but I normally bounce over and make sure that things are actually playing. Plus, I need to have a feed up separate from this StreamYard tool so I can actually do some polling because I wanted to discuss upcoming potential watch purchases with you all, and I thought using a poll tool might actually be the most logical way to actually get that sort of feedback. So, but of course, I'm still waiting for people to join up as I get underway. So, just as a quick summary, I know I didn't do any live streaming last week. I do try and live stream about once a week, just to help with engagement. Good opportunity for people to give me feedback who don't like to necessarily go in and leave comments, but just was too busy, didn't have a good topic to do. I looked at a couple things, and then what I ended up doing instead is I put out a video on world timers and felt like rather than doing it live, it would just be cleaner if I pieced it together. Plus, I had to kind of decide like where was I going to draw the line on world timers. Like I had a list of including user submitted. I must have had like 20 to consider. And I was like, I think I want to break this down just to 5. So that's what I ended up doing. And of course, if you want to see that video, you can go and check it out. And other than that, I think the last live stream I did was, I did a news one, but we did a this or that, our second this or that about where people pick which watch is best. I am in the process of setting up a new one or trying to. I've sent a number of invites out. That will probably happen either next week or the week after. Haven't decided yet, obviously. And then in terms of who will be involved, that's just going to come down to who's actually able to make the various times. I've given about 24 different time slots, it feels like, but I don't know whether or not that's actually going to work for anyone. If I can't get enough people, I'll punt it to being even later than what I've indicated currently. But I have actually gone through and built the entries. So I actually have 6. I normally do 5 tots, and I'm starting to feel like I'm making them run a little long. So maybe I should do fewer tots than what I've been going with. But nonetheless, I was like, okay, let's sort of like actually I have 6, and then I have an extra credit one that I'm thinking about doing. And I've warned everyone to expect more of a 90-minute stream than 60. In the invites, but I'm hoping to have that put together here in the next couple of weeks. I see I've got a few people joining up now. So Kevin from Florida has joined several times. Welcome, Kevin. Greetings. And, I researched how to say Altile based off of the phonetic, and then I listened to a playback, and then I still struggle with Design Altile's name, even though I shouldn't. But greetings as well from Kansas. So welcome, and this is no news. We're just gonna talk about watch purchases on the luxury side. So for those that aren't aware, and I don't know why anyone would be, because I don't think I've really updated anyone on a live stream recently, I have not done a lot of watch moves this year, and I've been thinking about picking up before the end of the year another luxury watch. Now, and okay, and Jason. Okay, I can say Jason a lot better. I try and use the handles as best I can. See, Kevin is a name I understand. I know Kevin's. I don't know if I know Jason's. Not spelled like that, but I guess I do now. So this year I have picked up a couple watches. Like I got the Quartz Tissot PRX. A couple watches arrived. Actually, I think just one. Actually, this is my Stova Type B Flieger. So I bought that last year, but it actually arrived early, like in the end of January. And then the Omega Seamaster that I got last month. So otherwise though, it's been pretty light. And I'm actually unloading a few watches at this point. So like I sold my Tudor 1926. I've got my Zodiac up for sale, the Super Sea Wolf I have. And I also have the Ming Messina Lab, which just gouges into my wrist too much to wear with the crown. It's the only time, I've had some large crown watches, including this one, and it just gouges. Like I'll have a big old red mark on my hand if I have to reach in my pocket for quarters or something. Like if I'm playing pinball, it's just like I can't. I've never had a watch actually hurt me, so that watch has to go. So anyway, my point is I'm freeing up space, and of course I will free up some funds. So I'm going to talk about. I think I've got 5 different brands I want to ask for opinions on. And the reason why, obviously, I know what I like. So But the opinions are help narrow things down because, of course, I've got an assortment of options, and I'm not quite sure. Like I'm torn between some of these choices, like within the dial layouts of some of these, and which companies. So I figured we'll use some polling tools, and we'll just have a fun discussion to kind of figure out, get your guys' opinions on like which direction do you think I should go. I see Von Kroll is in. Welcome, Von Kroll, to the live stream. Says, I heard something exciting recently. Bulova Lunar Pilot 43 millimeters, not released yet. I have, I think I may have seen something maybe on Watch You Seek mentioning it, but I haven't seen any images yet. So I don't know anything about that yet. 43 millimeters is at the edge of my edge of the sizing I would be willing to go with, but lug to lug's more important. In fact, I'm going to have a watch that I'm going to present here that's bigger than that. It's a 44. And I see Jason notes, I also had a chance to choose between the Auto or Quartz PRX. Went Quartz. It's elegantly thin for my small wrist. So did you go with like the 35? Because I don't remember they were out yet when I ordered mine, but I went with the 40. Was it a 40? 41 maybe? I forget what the first sizing was. But my problem with it was, I wanted to get it. I never had an integrated bracelet watch. So I wanted to get one, and I wasn't sure I wanted to commit a lot of money, even though I could obviously I could sell a PRX, or just like I can sell the Quartz if and when I get tired of it. But my thinking was, since I'm not sure, let's just go with the less expensive one. Plus, I didn't like the texturing. Like I prefer radiant dials, and the texturing on the PRX, just for me, it's too much like I want to be a Royal Oak, and I didn't want that vibe. So, as Yvonne Kroll has noted, some people remove the second hand from the PRX Quartz. It's a thinner watch, which is nice. And yes, I saw that, especially if you get really frustrated with the second hand not striking every marker equally. And mine, I think it definitely strikes half of them fine. The back half of the minute, though, I think it's inconsistent. And BJ says hello. Hello, BJ. Okay, so here's where I'm at. Just we're going to start with Breitling. So let me throw this up because we don't want to just look at my head. So I wonder if it works better if I do it like this. That might be a little better. Okay. Because just so I don't crop the little Breitling. So I chose the wrong color clearly for the text on this. I threw this all together today in my GIMP program. So and Bronco notes, yes, about the OCD and not hitting the markers. Yeah, it's had I not spent so many years with a Quartz watch, like my first quote unquote nice watch, which I have no idea where it is anymore, was a Citizen chronograph that I got. My mom got it for me in high school when I was working at a bank. And so it was a nice watch to me. And I don't think it hit the markers, evenly. So I wasn't used to that. And then of course, though, if you start getting all the automatics, they always look like they do because they hit everything because they tick so many times. But, okay. So Breitling, not a company I've historically looked at, but I've had more and more people on, like during the this or that's, the tots that I do. And they talk about Breitling. It's the Canadians. It's all the Canadians' fault. But you know what? They're not just maple syrup and Tim Hortons, okay? They're also Breitling fanatics up there. And so I've started to think, you know what? The slide rule is cool. Maybe I want to get a watch that uses a slide rule and could make myself actually learn how to read one because I never use a slide rule. We had calculators. So that's what these are. But you notice they're not chronographs. And that's the thing. When I started looking at Breitling, it's like I'm not drawn to their chronographs, even though they make very good chronographs. And the reason is I don't currently have a chronograph. And if I'm going to get a chronograph, I really am leaning towards a Zenith. And I'm going to talk about that later. It's one of the companies we're going to look at. So then I saw that fairly recently. I think these came out in 2018, maybe. Breitling put out Navitimers that are not chronographs, but still have the slide rules. And that's what all of these are, except these are all 41s, these four. Yeah, I think you can see my mouse. Except these two, and I made them a little smaller in the image to help. These two are 38 millimeters. So let's see. Actually, let me catch up on chat before I tear into these more. But so Von Kroll says, loves the Oceanus T200, hits every marker. That's nice. And yes, and sometimes the cheap, I don't know if it's the quartz movement, Von Kroll, that's the problem, or if it's the printing on the dial. And obviously when you're striking 1 second, that imperfections are going to just show up easier. I'm not certain. And Jason says 40 millimeter PRX. Okay, yeah, that's the one I got. Sometimes it fits my wrist okay, though, in my view. But I've shared images before. I've had people go, you should have got the smaller one. I'm like, the smaller one probably would look a little better. all things considered, but I didn't know that at the time. So I personally like 40 a lot, though. And Scott, who's a member of the channel, says 41 millimeter with a green dial is beautiful, and that is not one of the ones I have highlighted. And Jason also notes alternative Breitling slide rule is the Bolito X Log Kosk at $1,000. Okay, I'll have to research that one because I don't think I've ever looked at Bolito. Actually, I know I haven't, unless I've seen one randomly like on wrist shots. But while I'm talking, let me go ahead and so I got to switch tabs because my Streamlab won't let me do this, but I'm going to create a poll about these. So my thinking on the Breitling is, as I noted, is mostly the slide rule. And you can see though, I'm really torn on the dial colors. So, and part of this has to do with considering what other watches I want to get in the future. I'm like, I don't know. So to give some background, because you guys won't know what I have most likely. So I have 2 black watches currently. I have this Flieger that I'm wearing. And then I also have the a Black Bay, a diver, a Tudor Black Bay bronze. So the okay, so I can only put 4 pulls. Okay. So okay, I'm learning new things about the YouTube, but that's okay. So I'm gonna put it up, and we'll have to split some of these because I put 6 options in. But there you go. You should see the poll. So the main ones that I'm leaning towards personally, and I'd love your thoughts on, is I've been thinking about blue because I have no blue dial watches at all. I've also been thinking a lot about black because I like black and I think it goes well with a lot of stuff. And obviously there's a black 38 and this is the black 41. This is a little bit different. Like the black 41 has the rose gold indices, whereas these are just white. Then I hadn't really been considering this white one with the blue markers much, but I do think it looks very clean. Now I've grouped that in the poll with the silver dial with the gold markings. The reason why I've combined those is, well, I like the silver with the gold. There are other watches from other brands that I'm going to show you later, at least one, where I lean more towards that sort of silver with gold color scheme. So I've been thinking I probably don't want to go that route with Breitling because I don't think I want 2 watches that look like that. I think black is very versatile. I don't think white with gold is something I would wear very much. So, and then the thing about the 38s is, do you think going with the 41s is the wrong choice and that I should consider going with one of the 38s? Now, price-wise, they're pretty similar. The main thing though is in my headspace where I'm at is my concern was with the 38s is, am I putting myself in a position where it's too hard to read the slide rule? Like, have I gone too small at that point? And am I going to be like, I can't really use this? Even though 38 I think is a really good size to wear, I also normally have absolutely no problems wearing 41s. So to me, both sizes on paper sound good. It was more about the slide rule, and so that's where I'm at. So this is the first company of next purchases that I'm thinking. But as you can see, I have a very fickle opinion. Other than I like the non-chronograph Navitimer, I'm all over the place on these. And there were others I thought about including. I'm glad I did. I knew the poll wouldn't let me go more than 5. Apparently it limits me to 4. So I was just sort of like, okay, I don't know exactly what to do there, but we will find out. So anyway, yeah, feel free to vote on that in terms of thoughts, or if anyone wants to share any opinions in chat, I can read them out and we can go through that. But that's just kind of where I've been at. I see Scott has shared, and let me pop that up on the screen so folks can read that. Scott has said definitely a 41 with all the text on the dial, and yes, that's where I've been at. I'm like, there's so much. I mean, obviously the middle, as you can see with the mouse, the middle of the dials, very I mean, this isn't like, it's not nearly as cluttered as a Tudor, like a Pelagos, but once you get towards the outer edge, oh my gosh, that is a lot of markings. And I really struggle with being worried that these 38s are going to just be too tight to, like, my eyes aren't what they used to be when I was in my 20s. So Jason says, for me, it's the white dial. It makes the watch look better and better contrast. So yes, and that's one thing. I don't think I had been seeing this one around a lot. Let me clear this so you can see it a little easier. And I do like how distinct it is. And I think that's part of the thing that appealed to me with the silver as well. And I will not, once I get rid of my Zodiac is my silver dial watch that I currently have. And so once I get rid of the Zodiac, I won't have that anymore. But as I noted, I've got another one in mind that's kind of that cream to silver color. So I'm torn on that. Plus, I've got some other silvers here later in the list. So yes, this one's called to me a bit. I do have one white dial watch currently. My Explorer 2 is a polar, but I think that's the only white dial I have out of the whole collection. So I don't feel oversaturated. And like black, white goes with a lot. And I am a pretty big fan of white. So yeah, so that's sort of where I've been at with that as well. So let me go ahead and end the poll because I think we've had it up enough. And I think the results are going to be, it's easier for me to see on the phone. I said, okay, so, all right, nothing had a majority. Thank you, guys. Well, there were a lot of choices, so let's be fair. So 20% said one of the 38 millimeters, 28% said either the white dial or the silver dial. I had to merge those. That was unfortunate. It sounds like from the discussion and the number of viewers, that's probably people choosing the white dial. 20% also said the black dial, and 40% said the blue dial. Okay. So, all right. So that's helpful. Other than everything got picked. So, all right. So what I'm thinking is then maybe based off of, and I was leaning towards this anyway, is based off of what some of these other things are that I'm looking at. That might help determine what color because again, I don't know which one I'm going to get next, assuming it's one of these options. But if I get, say, a Zenith, the Breitling might have to come later, and if the Zenith is white, then I probably wouldn't want to get the Breitling white. Is how I'm thinking of it. So let's move to watch option number 2, and I will yet again get a poll created. But we're going to talk Cartier. I know I brought this one up before, so but I'm down to 2. They're both Santoses. Originally, I was really only thinking the Santos Dumont, and this one's got a silver dial, so you can see that that's part of the appeal to it. I really like the radiant silver that has. It is a quartz watch. The retail on those, incidentally, is like 4,000, and that would easily be the most I would have. I mean, I would try and find it for less, probably buy it used or through a gray. But regardless of that, all the pricing I've seen on it, the cheapest I've seen one of these go for in the U.S. is about $2,900 plus shipping, without like box and papers and stuff. So used, and that still would be by far the most I would have ever paid for a quartz watch. BJ asks a very important question. Are both medium size? No, that's another factor. So the Santos Dumont, the quartz one, these don't come in medium. You have 2 choices. You have small and you have large. So the WSSA 0022 is the large one. Now, these are not as large as the mechanical larges. There's actually, this style is in a mechanical extra large. The specs on it are way too big. And I've noticed that I didn't realize that. I live in my little naive bubble, and I hadn't really looked a lot at Cartier in the past. I did not realize they just make these gigantic, like Panerai-sized Santos watches, and I absolutely do not want one of those. This is a square watch. If anything, it should be smaller than what I would normally go with. And I've thought about saying, okay, maybe I should get the small on this, but I worry that one might be a little too small for my liking. I don't know. I have not checked it out in person. I did go to an authorized dealer, well, for the Omega, but it turned out they didn't do Cartier. They did Breitling. So Cartier is over with our area Rolex people, and I have not been back since I was looking at these to take a look in person. This is the medium, the mechanical. The large on paper, the lug-to-lug is way too big for me to want to do. So this, the WSSA 0029, or as I put in the poll, Santos de Cartier. This is the sort of that traditional. It's going to have the steel bracelet. Obviously, it doesn't have any of the gold highlights. The main reason, besides the sizing, though, that I like the medium, and you'll notice this is true for both of these versions, is no date. I don't despise the date on the Santos, but I would rather not have it, if that makes sense. I'm sure to watch people, it does. So I would rather, and that means Cartier's Santos de Cartier large is out. I believe it has a date, but the medium is a better fit anyway. So on paper, the sizing I'm much more comfortable with on this one. Mechanical movement is also about twice as much though as this one. So, and I don't know if I like the crown as much with the flattened Kobuchon versus this, but then again, this clearly says I'm a dress watch. It probably doesn't say it in that voice, but that's what it's thinking. And this is a little sportier, which I kind of like. I like the radiant dial better than the straight white dial. But again, like this seems more, I don't know. This seems more basic. But then again, it's like as a sports watch, maybe I would. I think I'd like radiant silver on either. Again, my Super Seawolf is radiant silver, so that's kind of where I'm at in terms of trying to pick between those. So Scott asks, do you prefer the medium Santos due to no date or more traditional sizing? Both. I'd say both. The lug to lug on it it'll fit my wrist for sure. I'm a little worried that maybe it looks a little too big. I don't think as long as it doesn't hang over, I honestly don't think it's that big of a concern. Except large dress watch seems a little weird to me. And then while I was thinking about this, I started to see other dress watches that have started to kind of catch my eye. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe I should just get the medium for the smaller sizing. I don't like the large mechanical. It's too big. It's bigger than this. So that that would be like getting the XL of this. Just too big. Just way too big. So let's see. I see some other comments to help out. Savon Kroll says, I don't like a date on a dressy mechanical. I want to set it quickly and easily and put it on. Yes. And so that is an attraction. Obviously, I haven't had too hard of a time finding no dates. And I didn't put it on here. I thought about it. If I wanted to throw a used one, and later on we'll have some that aren't currently made. But the Santos 100s. So the Santos 100s are mechanicals. They're like the prior gen, I guess, and they don't have date either. So they were an option as well. And with those though, they kind of seem to run big, and I struggled to find good sizes. So I mean, that was kind of why I didn't put them on here. Jason says, dress watch for me. Then again, that's my lifestyle. I dress up often as a Jehovah's Witness. So, okay, see that makes sense. And for me, in the pandemic, I haven't had to wear as much. I work in public health, so we don't wear as many. We don't wear suits as much as a lot of other fields might. Even doing what I do, which is meeting with a lot of administrators. But one of the things I do as part of my job is I'm a lobbyist for during the legislative session in the state. And so while that's not my primary function, it can't be as a nonprofit. I do have a limited responsibility to go before the legislature and speak to them. And you do wear jackets and ties in front of the legislature, or you try to. I made one exception once when I was rapidly called into a hearing that I should not have had to talk to. And in that case, they got me in sneakers and a sports coat. And I was glad I have the sports coat. So that's kind of where I've been at with that. So, but the thing is, and again, there's no way you all can remember because it's been so long since the last state of the collection if you even saw it. But I already have some dress. Like I have a Reverso. So I usually wear that when I need to dress up, or I do have a Rolex Oyster Perpetual, a little 34 millimeter. And so while that's sort of a sports watch, it's so small, I can get away with easily treating that like a date watch. It's just a little time only watch. So that's kind of where I've been at with those. Amanda notes the band is too style specific on the Dumont. Yeah, and the band is a blue alligator, which is unusual. However, these the lug width I don't think is weird on either of these. So I could change the straps out. I can change the bands with third party stuff if I want to. These aren't like, at least on this one I can. I don't think this is special other than the screws look cool, but I think there's nothing hard about it. It's not like the PRX or anything where you have to get these weird special sizes. See, Robert has said that Cartier would seem to get more wear, and that was my thinking as well, as I would probably end up wearing it more because it is so sporty. And I am in t-shirts more than I am in dress clothes. And Obese Tuna says hello, so I say hello back. And Jason notes, actually, the leather band is more versatile between these two. Interesting. One of the things I thought about is whether or not it would be too much of a scratch magnet, the steel bracelet. because they do. I've seen a number of people with like, here's my my Santos de Cartier a year later, and they all look pretty scratchy. Which again, I'm okay with scratches. It's like because I wear my watches, but obviously it will show them more than a band. Leather band gets worn out, and then you just get a new band if you really care about it. And Jason also says, then the bracelet, the Dumont may be redundant with a reverso. And yeah, that's one of those things. And Robert says he likes the 70s vibe of or he notes it has a 70s vibe. Don't know if he likes it or not. So yes, all really good points. So let me see where the polling has closed us out I should say. So I've bounced between two windows in the polls. So sorry about that. Okay, so according to the results, and this is where I just look at the phone so I can be back on my stream monitor. All right, so Santos de Cartier, 75% of the vote, and the more dressy quartz version, 25%. So, okay, yeah, not less divisive than the Breitlings were, but the Breitlings, I did give you 4 different options. 6 different watches and 4 different poll votes. So that one was quite chaotic. And Amanda notes, mine get destroyed, but I wash my hands so much and wet leather feels gross. Yes. And that's if you have like a trade job, medical field job, if you're washing your hands a lot, dental, when I was a kid, my watches all had like cheap leather bands and they all just rotted and fell apart. It's to a degree. Like I normally wouldn't wear this Flieger. I wasn't wearing it for the summer because I like this band. It's very comfortable, but this is a leather strap. And if I think I'm going to sweat, so if I go out walking, I'll wear a steel bracelet watch, but I will not wear my leather watches. That is just like, it's too gross, just too gross. Okay, so we've talked about Breitling because I've been interested in the Navitimers for those of you that are just tuning in. We talked about the non-chronograph Navitimer 41s and 38s and just really which dial colors made the most sense. Part of the complication, we're going through these companies in alphabetical order. So we did Cartier. So now we're in 3 of 5. I got 5 companies we're going to do tonight. Because why not? Let's have some fun. So now we're going to talk Glashuta Original. And this is another company I've brought up before. And I know some people have very strong positive opinions about Glashuta. So Glashuta is a German brand. I, for a very long time now, have been a fan of their asymmetrical dials of their Pano line. In fact, I think their asymmetrical dials, like shot for shot, design choice overall, I actually think they execute the asymmetry better than the Lange ones do for A. Lange & Söhne, which is just as well because A. Lange & Söhne watches are way more expensive as long as we stick with steel. Actually, it's like $10,000 less even if you go gold with a Glashuta Original. And Amanda's seeing. Yes, I don't think I've shown these off on any other, on the TOTS. I've never touched a Glashuta, but we're going to talk about them now. So yes, I have been very tempted for a long time now. This is one of my longest running ones that I've been thinking about getting in the luxury space. I've just mostly had to rationalize that I need enough. These run more along the realm of like $7,000+ even used. So I have to really consider unloading something I've already got to, justify. Like trading a pinball machine out for a new one. This isn't like picking up an old Firepower. This is like picking up a new one. So I've actually got 3 things in mind. I'll create the poll while I chitter chatter here. You'll notice 2 are of one design and one is of another, and that's part of the challenge. So I've got the blue Pano Reserve, which again, it's like if I got the blue Pano Reserve, we talked earlier about the Navitimers, and I know a number of you weren't on during that, and I'll bounce back in a moment, but sorry, it's hard for me to talk and type at the same time. So for me, this isn't the best image of the blue. It's very, very shiny, very, very, I think it's very, very impressive finishing, nice display case back. It's a wonderful blue, very kind of radiant. You see it more in the green. These all shine like that. My issue with this, though, is as you see the blue, and the same with the black. I really like the blue and I really like the black. I don't have any current watches that are blue, but if we go back to again, if I decide either before or after to get a Breitling Navitimer, if I get a shiny blue Breitling or a shiny black Breitling, be it the 41 or the 38, do I want to end up getting a shiny blue or a shiny black Pano? I don't know. So now the thing is that I like about both of these 2 is the Pano Reserves are manual only, so they're a little thinner and they're hand wind. this green, I'm not a total green fanboy. I only have one green watch. It's that Oyster Perpetual. And in fact, I've thought about trading that out for this if I were to get this green one. I think the moon phase, I struggle with it. I think the moon phase on the dial looks better than the power reserve. But I also think I would use the power reserve, and I don't know that I'd use the moon phase. But maybe it doesn't matter what I would use. The other thing is that these are, because it's a Pano-matic, it's an automatic watch, so it's got a winding rotor on the back, so you have that versus the manual wind aspect of it. But otherwise, they're the same basic concept. So what are folks' thoughts on all of that? And I'm going to catch up on, so Jason has said green definitely on this one, and the finishing on this is amazing. He almost reviewed one. I have never seen one in person. I don't think I have a Glashuta original authorized dealer remotely anywhere near my area, or else I would have gone and seen. I'll have to double check. I know I don't have Zenith nearby, and we're going to touch on Zenith here later. These are in alphabetical order, obviously. Robert says, in a large collection, the green face lunar would be really unique and cool, but one of the others would likely get more wrist time. And that's a good point. And again, for people that are coming in later. So my current watch collection, discounting the ones I'm trying to sell off, I have about a dozen. So I have a large collection. I have 2 black watches already. I have 1 dive watch and 1 pilot watch that are black. I have no blue watches, and I have 1 green watch. It's a much darker green than this, but it is a radiant dial Oyster Perpetual. Amanda says she loves the green. It's eye-catching and unique. And yeah, I'm trying to think, maybe I was going to say I haven't seen a green like this. I think Mosier has a green like this, but Mosier is way more expensive and doesn't have the asymmetry. And she thinks my skin color could pull it off. Well, I am more tan now than I normally am in the winter. It's because I've been biking a lot more lately. And Obese Tuna likes the green dial a lot. So, okay, so it seems like most of the chat is very pro Panomatic Lunar. Now, these are just the ones I most like. If I want this design with the moon and the automatic, it is in the black and the blue. But these reserves do not come in green. The green seems unique to this, but I can get this in these other colors. So there are a lot of choices available in the Pano line of the reserves and the Madex. So they have a few with other features, but most of those that I looked at are only in gold. So they got a lot more pricey than I would be willing to consider. But okay, so those are good thoughts. I appreciate that. So let me go ahead and end the poll. And it looks like the chat is very much, as you would expect, very much aligned with the polling. So the green Panomatic Lunar is the recommendation by 57% of you. The blue Pano Reserve had 28% of the vote, and the black had 14. And yeah, that's kind of mostly it would come down to, yeah, I don't know. I think you guys are right. I think the green, I think that's where I'm at currently. The blue looks really, really good. But again, the Breitling blue looks good. So if I had that, I don't think I would want the blue. So it's just one of those challenges. So let's move to the fourth company. So IWC, this is one I have not talked about before. I had not been considering IWC. If you were to ask me 6 months ago about IWC, I would tell you IWC is a company that makes really expensive Fliegers, and you might as well buy a Laco or a Stova and save the money. That's what I would have told you. They're beautiful, though. They are beautiful watches. But as I was learning more and doing more research and seeing other things, one of the things that caught my eye were I was seeing a lot more of these Portuguese watches. Now, most of my watches are smaller. My largest watch is a 43 millimeter dive watch. It's about 52 millimeters lug to lug, which is barely, it doesn't hang over, but on a 6 and 3/4 inch wrist, it's close. These are about the same lug width. These are 44 millimeters. And as you can see, they are all dial. There's like no bezel. This is all dial. The thing that's caught my eye, these all have display case back. They are powered by pocket watch movements. And to give a little bit of the history on these, because I didn't know, so now I'll subject all of you to it while I type the polling. Is so back in the 30s, like I was like 39 or so, some Portuguese importers came to IWC, International Watch Company at the time, and asked for a wristwatch with the accuracy of a pocket watch. And back then, there was no wristwatch movement that could do that. The only way to get that level of accuracy was to use a pocket watch movement itself. So that's what they did. IWC had pocket watches, and they went ahead and stuck one into a wristwatch case that they created, and they sold them to the Portuguese importers, and the rest is history. They did not sell well. These were not popular watches because at the time, the average watch for a man was like 33 millimeters. They weren't this big. These were maybe 41s or around that, I think, at the time. They had to fit the pocket watch and movement, and so it was just ridiculously oversized at the time. And so they went ahead and kind of revived this as a thing in the 90s, I think. Anyway, these watches are not made now. They do make Portuguesers. Sometimes they're called Portuguese, sometimes they're called Portugueser. And Paul's up now. And the current ones are automatics, and they're smaller. They're about 41 millimeters, which is probably more accurate to the size of the time. However, they use wristwatch movements. These they don't use the ETA 6498. They use something else, and I'll look it up really quick. And I'm not sure on what Unitas is. So what's Vonkel says 6497, 6498 movements are what you normally start with in learning watch repair. Bigger movement like this is like a tutorial boss. Yes, Vonkel. And when I started working on watch movements, I made the exact opposite move. I've never worked on a pocket watch movement at all. I started with, actually I got a Timex, which you then find out are completely incapable of being properly maintained. And then I got, because they were so cheap, ladies, like little cocktail watches, and they were so small I just could not do anything with it. It was ridiculous. So these watches are actually using a hand wind only. IWC calls it the caliber 98-295. It is based on the movement that was used in the 39. It's very, very similar. And anyway, it's a display case back, super cool, huge movement, like giant regulating. I should put one of the images here. Giant regulating needle, 3/4 bridge plate. It's pretty nicely finished. Beautiful movement. You can see everything. You can even see the hack. It's so big. So just shockingly big. It's so ridiculous. I don't know why I want one, but the dials are now. These hand wind Portuguesers in the 44s. There are a couple of versions. There are 8-day versions, which I don't like any of them because they have a 3 o'clock date. And I just think it breaks it all up compared to this. And the modern IWC Portuguesers, if any of the subdials crop numerals, I hate them. So some of the 7 days are okay. They put a subdial here and here, and they're automatic movements. And they have some that kind of look like this, but are smaller and have the subdial here, and they don't crop the 7 or the 5. I like those too. But these I like better. But I'm totally torn on not in a bad way. It's kind of like I'm pretty happy with looking at most of these. The only one that I wasn't, they came with a variety of colors. They made these from like 2010 to 2014. And my understanding is IWC discontinued these because they were too expensive to make. They're too expensive to make with the pocket watch movements, and that's why they ended it, and then they brought back the current iteration using wristwatch movements because it was just more economical for them for what they were selling them for. One of the most common ones, so you have to buy it used, is my point. There are a couple of variants. I've seen 6 versions for sure that I know exist. The 2 that are not reflected is one is just like this black one, except the subdial is also black. It's my least favorite one. The subdial is like this subdial. It's got a splash of red at the 60, but otherwise it looks just like this. It's probably the same subdial. I just think it's too boring. Then there's also the blue one, and this is actually a very shiny blue. Again, what me and shiny blue. Instead of the silver subdial, it's blue on blue, and it's the same color. I actually think that one looks okay. It looks more alive. But I only wanted to include 4, which is good because that's the poll limit on YouTube. So that's what I've gone with. But I still think the silver dial is actually more eye-catching because I just think it's a better contrast to but the one exception is where I've been leaning is of all 4 of these. We talked about when we were back with the Breitlings. I talked about the silver dial, and I said there are other silver dials that are really appealing to me. I actually like this one with the gold hands and like the silvery cream on silvery cream. I think this one looks good too with the black. Again, it's more jarring. It's more, there's more color variety to it. But yes, as Obese Tuna has noted, yeah, the white on white just seems really traditional. And the funny thing is, this is a whole set of contradictions. This is almost 52 millimeters lug to lug. This watch is under 10 millimeters thick. It is a thin watch, but it's designed to be a dress watch, even though it does have a seconds hand on it, and it's a 44 millimeter diameter. But it's designed to slide under any cuff, and it's just this weird conundrum. And I just think it looks really cool. So I've actually, rather than looking more at the modern ones, which incidentally, these, because they are less popular, I guess, probably because of their size, they actually, most of these watches are running like $5,000 to $6,500, and the more modern ones are kind of in that same price point. I'd say maybe bump it up about 500 more, probably because they're newer with better movements. These are only 18,000 vibrations per hour movements. Again, very, very traditional. So this is one that I've really liked the look of. I don't see this one come up as much, but this, like the Panda in it, reverse Panda or Panda, I don't know. Looks fun to me, but I don't know. And Bronco says, seems like it would have a bit too much wrist presence at that size with hardly any bezel. And that's the thing. And because I can't go anywhere to try it because it's discontinued, it's like, what it's like, what if this is all a horrific mistake and and maybe I should just completely steer clear of it. I see Jason has said, you lost me at IWC. Not a fan of the Portugueser. Okay. I'm assuming with the IWC statement, you're not a fan of any of their watches. Again, I've only ever known them for their Flieger type pilot watches. And for me, I was always like even their cheapest ones start at $4,000 US. And to me, I get it. They're an original Flieger manufacturer, but why would you turn to them when you can get just as authentic of a Flieger from Laco or Stova? I mean, I didn't understand it, but we all have our preferred brands. So Amanda says, you're gonna have to educate me on what qualifies as different style of watches. Well, that's I don't know if I can. So I mean, in terms of like dress watch versus sports watch versus I mean, some of it's spec. So a dive watch needs to have a certain amount of water resistance. Dress watches are typically smaller and simpler, no complications or minimal complications. In the purest form, a dress watch doesn't even have a seconds hand. It should just be hour and minute, and very small. Pilot watches and field watches are very similar. Pilot watches should emphasize ease of legibility, and field watches they need to, in my mind, field watch should always be able to hack. Pilot and field watches don't have to have as much water resistance, though. They're not dive qualified. Field watches are usually mil-spec or military specified watches, so they will try and meet some standard that at least at one point existed for a military, if they're not currently being made for the military, as they still are mil-spec watchmakers out there. Marathon is a Canadian company that's very famous for doing mil-spec for the US and other countries. And then there's sort of like other weird categories, catch-all categories, like just general sports watch, or go anywhere, do anything watch. So some of it's really loosely defined. And Jason says, yes, I'm not a fan of most IWC. I'm yet to see a watch from them that I like enough to put on any list. And historically, it's not a company I've ever looked at too much either. Most of their stuff looks too big in an uninteresting way to me. Frankel says, I'm a 19 centimeter wrist, and I feel like about 40 millimeters is my limit for a watch that's nearly all dial. And I don't think I have. I mean, I guess this Flieger, which is a 41, is my only watch I really have that's pretty much all dial. And this would count as a pilot's watch. So, because again, the numbers are all designed to tell the time really huge. Oh, and another thing with pilot watches is you want it dripping with lume for days. This is my best loomed watch by a country mile. All right, let's end the poll. It seems like this one's been more controversial. So, and the results are very split. White on white and blue on white were tied at 33%. And then black with white was 22%. And white with black was 11%. Okay. Well, that one seemed less popular overall than most of my other choices. Mike comes in. Hey, Mike, what is the highest Hertz watch out there right now? Probably a quartz watch, which is what, 34,000 some Hertz would be my guess. There's maybe something that, I don't know if there's anything that vibrates faster than quartz. Jason might know. He's got more knowledge than me on watches. So, so quartz, that's the thing. We talk about, most mechanical watches are, the modern standard, in my opinion, is 4 Hertz. You'll see a lot of lower cost mechanicals, and dress watch is anything that wants a long power reserve as well will often run with 3 Hertz. You might see some stuff go down to 2.5. And on the upper end, generally is 5 Hertz without really fancy stuff like 10 Hertz. I think Zenith has some chronographs that will run the time on 5 Hertz, but run the chronograph at 10 Hertz to get you 1/100th of a second precision. And Vronkel has noted hearing about 8 Hertz. And for time telling, I have heard, yes, I've heard about some companies have pushed 8 Hertz out of the watch. So, I mean, that's just the thing historically, up until modern components like plastic components and silicone components, is, as Vronkel has noted, when you're getting up to like over 50,000 vibrations an hour, the amount of wear that the watch takes historically meant you had to service it a lot more. So in the 60s, when Zenith and Seiko were putting out 5 Hertz movements, they didn't have synthetic lubricants at the time, and all the parts were still metal. So the watch that you might hope to service every 5 years would need to be serviced every 3. And so that was a big disincentive for turning to those. And speaking of Zenith, see, perfect transition. See, Vronkel, it all works out for us. This is the last one. So this is one I know I've talked about. I've talked about a number of times, and that's Zenith and their Chronomasters. And okay, wow, 1,000 Hertz. The Tag Heuer Carrera Micro Girder. Wow, I did not know about that. Tag is doing some really interesting stuff when they're not busy doing like NFT watches. They do some interesting stuff. And yes, vibrations an hour. So that's every little tick is a vibration. So a Hertz, 4 Hertz means that's a tick and a talk. So a 4 Hertz movement every second, the second hand actually stutters 8 times. So you double that. And the way you can math it is you take the Hertz, you multiply it by 2 to get you the amount per second. Then you multiply that by 60 per minute, multiply by 60 again per hour. That's vibrations per hour. So that's the formula. And Vronkel says 5 Hertz is nice for chronos because you get 10 vibrations per second, which allows you to measure and count 1/10 of a second. I agree. And I'm not a big fan at this point of chronographs that don't offer 1/10 of a second accuracy, because that's just a standard, kind of metrically oriented movement we would think of. And so here we are with all of these are 5 Hertz movements. So let me go ahead and create the little poll, because I love polls. Which Zenith will it be? So I've typically, when thinking about the Zeniths, as I've leaned towards the Chronomaster originals. Those are 38 millimeter, and they've put out a few different flavors. I've only been interested in the standard dial, but they've got a few different strap options, and honestly, I don't feel all that strongly about the straps at this point. The problem that I've run into is it seems like, sorry, again, typing and chatting, they're just hard to find. Like, these are not showing up gray and not for much discount, and they're not been showing up used very quickly either. And so Zenith put the one out. And my normal rule of thumb would be I would get the bracelet, because I can get bands. I can get bands anywhere. I can get leather bands anywhere. So they put that out. And then I think at the same time, I think it was the gray band, leather band. And then towards the end of last year, they put out another version, same price as the other non-metal band. But again, it was another one. I thought, okay, another SKU. Maybe more of these will become available. But the demand for these has been very high, apparently, because I still struggle to see them show up very much. And Neff's like, what's happening? I'm super late. Neff, we were picking out all the new watches I'm supposed to buy. And the answers are, no one knows when it comes to Breitling Navitimers. Mechanical Santos medium sizes are more popular than quartz version ones. IWC is a hated brand and shouldn't be considered. And we're talking about which Zenith then. So I think I summarized that pretty well. It's not bad for a 50-minute show condensed down into 5 seconds. Scott says the Chronomaster Sport definitely on my list. Great looking dial. So what I like about the Chronomaster Sport is it's more. I think they run about $1,000 more. It's a bigger watch. Like these are 38s, and I think the Sport is a 41. Basically the same look. The subdials are the same color, which is what I like. I like the subdial approach. You do get this nice ceramic black bezel versus the look on the sort of the interior bezel style they go with the smaller Zenith, and it would probably be easier to read the stopwatch feature. So I'm like, I don't know. I hadn't been considering the Chronomaster Sport because I kind of like the idea of a smaller chronograph, but I'm wondering if we run into the same problem we did back when we talked about the Breitlings, and like, are the 38 millimeter slide rules too small for someone in their mid 40s to be able to read at this point versus these 41 millimeter slide rules? Am I running into the same problem here? I don't know if I'd use the chronograph a lot. Back when I had a quartz chronograph, I did use it a lot. I used it to time myself on billable projects, and then I would log those. I don't have that same work style anymore, and these chronographs only go up to, because of the 10th of a second whip, the red second hands go around the dial once every 10 seconds. So because of that, this doesn't have a subdial to track chronograph hours, just chronograph minutes. So it doesn't go as long. My point is that you can't use it for super long time. You could feasibly use it for up to 2 hours because you'd know the first hour it went around, most likely, unless you were completely oblivious about your life. So yeah, in regards to Amanda's question, how often do you use the stopwatch? Not as much as I used to, but there have been things where I've wanted to use. I'll often use a timer on the phone now, and I actually, if I had the option on a watch, I'd do it more often. And you can use a dive bezel like that too. Just usually I don't. I only have 3 dive watches. One of which, because I have it up for sale, I don't wear anymore. It's in its box. And so out of a 12 watch rotation, I don't usually have a dive watch on. It's just the problem I run into. First world watch problems. Okay, now this is helpful. So Jason says that the bracelet clasp on these are nail killers. So that would be, yeah, I don't like, I'd rather save the money. If the bracelet's bad, I still lean towards if you don't know, buy the bracelet. But if you do know, and you don't want the bracelet, the bracelet, I've never heard anything great about Zenith bracelets. And I heard a lot of criticism of their throwback ladder bracelets, but obviously this is more of that oyster style that we think of with Rolex. Neff's summary of my 5-second summary was, I nailed the Santos. IWC is cool type. The new Type 20. That's one of those pilot styles. We did not talk about that. We talked about Portuguesers. And Zenith, no Chronomaster Sport, please. And let's see. Other opinions. Robert says, I just don't feel the love for this. Too generic looking. Like the brand, not this model. And yeah, some people think, especially the Sport, that it looks too much like the Daytona. BJ, I have not missed your question. I did see it. I want to go back to it now, though. What do you think of the Chronomaster original Panda dial? I don't like the Panda as much. I think the one thing about Zenith that I really liked is that, I didn't like it originally, but it was a different model, is the tricolor. Some of their tricolors piss me off. I think it clashes or something. It just doesn't look good. I like these, though. I like this soft gray to soft brown to, the radiant blue. So I like that. And that's the thing about Zenith. Besides the 5 Hertz cool movement. Like the movement's the main thing, and then I like that color addition. And the Panda obviously loses that because you just get that really clean look. But I have so many watches with a clean look. That's why I don't think it's ugly. I'd rather get a Portuguese or Panda than get a Panda and a Chrono. So that's kind of the thinking I have there. Scott says 41. So that would be the Sport. The mini dials in 38 would be tough to read without effort. Amanda says, when not cooking mac and cheese from a box, how often? I do not cook mac and cheese from a box. I will not go to that much trouble. Mac and cheese, I didn't even eat for years. And at this point, I will only do it as one of the little bowl meals you just throw in the microwave. I ain't getting out the stuff for the stove for mac and cheese. Practically has no flavor anyway. Jason says, yes, try these on before you buy. Also, the Chronomaster Sport is super hard to get waitlist. And that's my understanding. The Sport's even more popular than the original. So that's another challenge. The problem, Jason, that I have is, unless I luck out and find someplace used or travel for someplace work related and remember to do it, there is not, I don't think within an 8-hour drive is there any dealer near me with Zenith. I think maybe Chicago, and I ain't going to Chicago this year. Sorry, Chicago Expo fans. So I won't. I just don't live near one. I've checked 3 times. Keep thinking maybe someone will pick up Zenith and deal them, but they just aren't doing it. But yeah, at the price. I mean, and again, these are like new. These are like 9 to 11,000. So Neff says, my issue with the Sport is it looks like a Daytona, especially on the bracelet. And that, again, I don't like things to look homage-y, and that's where, at least the original, to me, the originals don't look like the Daytona. I definitely see with this bezel why people think this looks like a Daytona, because it does. And Scott says, if only you didn't swear off Pinball Expo. You see? But I did. Pinball Expo has to pay a price for being a bad expo. Mike's, oh no, we got pinball fans in the audience. Bronco says, I still enjoy KD sometimes with bacon for the win. All right, so let me end the poll. If I can find the end button. This one we had way too many choices again. Okay. So here, and once again, no clear majority. The original with the steel bracelet, the 38 millimeter. So this one in the upper left, and then the Sport are both 36% of you. And then these other two, well, no, the gray band one here was 18%, and the blue one was, I thought the gray would be the worst out of all of them, but the blue band only got 9% of the vote. Okay, so I'm not too surprised. I actually honestly thought that the Sport would just flat out win with you guys because it's so much bigger. But so I'm going to ask you, which brand do you think I should go with first? And obviously I can only do 4 poll options because YouTube doesn't want this to turn into SurveyMonkey for some reason. So the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to merge Cartier and IW. Well, no, I'm not going to do that. Let me merge Glashuta and Zenith. And the reason is because there are no dealers nearby. Those are the 2 I most likely cannot wear or cannot try on. So Jason says, I respectfully disagree. The Chronomaster Sport wears larger. The Daytona wears smaller case profiles make the difference. Okay. Interesting. So all right. So now I've got, we don't need to look at that anymore. So I've got a new poll up. Actually, we will look at this again. So I can show you the way I've done it, because I thought I could do 5 poll options. I'm sorry. I should have double checked with YouTube before I made my listing. So the way I've done it is the ones that are I think I'm most likely to get next, both for pricing, accessibility, the ability to, I've already seen the Navitimers in person. So I've got Breitling as an option in person. The Cartiers in person. We've already done the polls for which ones you guys preferred. I've merged the Glashuta with the Zeniths because I don't have distributors nearby that will let me try them. And then I'm not sure on IWC, but I've been looking at them a lot more lately. So I just think it's more realistic that I might actually pull the trigger on one of these because they're all used is the thing. So based off of that, the poll is just asking, if you were to pick, which one do you think I should get next? Would be, should I get one of the Breitling Navitimers? Should I get one of the Santoses? Should I get one of the Panos? Or choose that same option if you think I should get one of the Zeniths, or if I should get one of the Portugueses as the next watch. And I guess as a crash course, in case it helps, though hopefully most of you have already cast your vote. My current watch collection, not counting the stuff for sale. So I have an Omega Seamaster. I don't have any dive watches, obviously, in this selection. Tudor Black Bay Bronze. Again, another dive watch. Rolexes, I have an Explorer 2. I have the Oyster Perpetual. I have this Stova Flieger Type B dial as a pilot watch. I have a Hamilton mechanical field watch. I have I have two Mr. Jones watches, so sort of novelty watches. One arcade, one old timey arcade themed, one pinball themed. I have the Tissot PRX, so integrated bracelet, quasi, regular sports watch. I have a champagne dial, time date, Grand Seiko spring drive watch, and that's all the stuff that's jumping out in my head right now. And a G-Shock. I have a square G-Shock. So I do have a square watch already. And I have the JLC Reverso, small seconds. So that's all the main stuff I can think of that's in the case that I wear. So let's see. Let me catch on chat here with some of the discussion. I see Neff and Jason were talking about the cases being, this is about the Zeniths. Mike says, if I was spending your money, then please buy the most expensive so I can feel fancy vicariously through you. And in terms of the most expensive, that would be the Zeniths. So if you're curious about the pricing, we'll reshare. And again, I'm trying, some of this is off of memory. The Breitlings are, I think, the cheapest overall out of like all of these assortments. Like you can find some of these used or gray for under 4,000. So they would be the cheapest. Other than the quartz Santos Dumont, you can sometimes find under 3. More realistically, if you want it in new condition, it's going to be somewhere around the mid 3s. This one's going to be closer to $6,000 to $7,000, the mechanical. These Glashutas, $6,000 to $8,000. These think more along the lines of $5,000 to $6,000, and then these think more along the lines of $8,000 to $10,000. Let's see. Amanda liked the Glashuta Lunar. I'll let you all see that again. This green one that we talked about. I know, yeah, Glashuta. That's pretty. I mean, technically, that's like an umlaut U. So I got it right here on the screen because let me get rid of my face so you can see it. Because I cut and pasted off their website. That's how I do it. I don't know how to type that. I can't remember the ASCII codes for all that stuff. BJ asks, what do you think the ideal collection size? I don't have a strong opinion of that. The answer for me is as long as I feel like I'm still able to reasonably wear them all. So when I first started collecting watches, which was only a couple of years ago, I wore one watch for years and years and years. I would wear a watch for a week. So when I started collecting, I would wear, like, if I got this out, I've worn this watch 3 days in a row now, this Flieger. I normally, with my collection size, wear a watch for 2 days. So 2 days on, and then I move to another watch and I wear it 2 days. And if I'm being very linear, and sometimes I am, I will go and actually wear them in the order that they are in my cases so that I make sure I wear them all. And then anything I start to not wear very much, like my Tudor 1926, I sell. Because I had too many watches that did time plus date. So even though I like the Tudor, and the Tudor sold fast, I actually thought I would have an easier time selling the Zodiac because I priced it so well below market. But the Tudor actually went really quick. And then, so it would be about wearability. Now, but if you're a collector that likes to just sit and look, like you just like to own, then I could definitely see you saying, you know what, I can have dozens of watches. I, at one point, told myself I wasn't going to have more than 6, and then I got another case, and I thought, okay, 12 is probably reasonable. And I have 3 6-sized cases now. I've never had 18 watches at once. But the thing is, when you start getting them as gifts and stuff, like, oh, another novelty watch I have is like a Spiro Agnew watch. Like, so there are watches like that are kind of like fun, silly, stupid watches. They're not like serious watches. So those, in a way, like I have them and I keep them, but I don't feel the same. Like I don't feel like I need to wear the Spiro Agnew watch if I don't. I got it fixed so it works, but I don't feel like I have to wear it in the rotation the same way I might wear a Pano Lunar from Glashuta. So let's see. I answered that. Neff says, I have to say Santos, but it sounds like you want IWC the most, and they're very unique and classy. Love the design. You can't go wrong with any of these. Well, that's interesting, Neff, because that is, in the world of, perhaps you've gone through this as well. In the world of collecting, that's just because this week I've been thinking about IWCs. Last week, I was looking at the Santoses again. And for a very long time, for over a month, I've been watching this one for a long time, the quartz. But then I started to get a little concerned about the sizing in particular. and these come up more, and I started looking more and more at the mechanical, and I'm thinking, as some of our discussion was earlier, it's like I might wear it more, it might go with more things, like, and again, there's nothing that stops me eventually from getting, why not both? So it's like, if you have a JLC Reverso and I eventually decide to get this, which is sort of a dressier watch, one of these Glashutas or one of these Portugueses, it's like, do I want the dressier Santos then? Maybe I'd rather have the sports one. So it's one of those things that ends up coming up. So that's the struggle. The struggle is real. Let's see. And Scott says, which brands are using Vanta Black currently? I think just Mosier. I think just maybe someone else could correct me. I thought it was Mosier that came out with Vanta Black. Am I wrong on that? I might be. I've only seen one brand use it. Vanta Black, I mean, it looks really cool. I having heard about that the guy who developed it doesn't have the greatest personality, doesn't make me want it. Coupled with that, it's very toxic paint. I don't think it. I think maybe that's just to work with. I don't think there's any risk to the end user. But I've always favored like shimmering things, radiant, sunburst style, even black, and that's where things like the Breitling, which kind of have more of a shiny black, like that appeals to me more than that stark, cold black. Even my Black Bay Bronze sort of a radiant. My flattest black is actually this. I can't get a good shot of it, but probably because I'm not pointing at the camera right. But so just these sort of let me just take it off. This is silly. Why am I making this difficult? So that's probably my blackest black, which ain't particularly black. But I mean, it's matte, so there's that. Oh, that rhymed. And yes, Neff remembers. Yes, I've been looking at the quartz for a while because I thought, and again, that doesn't have a second hand, so it masks its quartzness. The Cartier sight notes, I don't know exactly what movement they're using for it, but it's designed so the battery changes in every 2 years. I think it's more like 4 to 5. So it's an extended sort of power reserve technique. And let's see. Jason says, I have 41 watches, mainly because I keep review units. My personal collection that I won't sell is 9. Yeah, and that's another thing. Doing the, this is a very small channel, but like I had on my birthday's next month. So on my birthday list, I put on like an Orient Komatsu watch, red dial one, because it's like, you know what? I kind of like to review it. And if I end up wanting to dump it, I will. Or, watches like that, sometimes I just give away if they're a couple $100. Actually, I've never sold one that wasn't that I didn't think I'd at least get 1,000 out of. But I mean, it's just, it's one of those things. So sometimes for the channel, I think I'd like to try it for a little bit, and then if I need to get rid of it, I won't lose that much. But then this channel's so small. Like my best review is my 1926 review, and I only monetized a few months ago. But that's my only review that I think is over 10,000 views. My Reverso review is very close to that count, I think. But Tudor's a really popular company. A lot of the watches I review are so odd. There's not a lot of Stova demand, for example, so that one doesn't do as well. Let's see. And Neff notes Mosier with Vanta Black. Yeah, I've only seen one. It was fairly recent. And Neff has also said, I'd love to pick up the Solar Beat tank. I was so hoping this year that they were going to have a Solar Beat Santos. Surely, I don't know if you all into watches have thoughts on this, but I'm like, surely spending all that research and development to develop solar panels that can hide behind the Roman numerals, they're not going to just use it on the tank, right? They got to use it again. I thought the solar tank was an incredibly cool concept. It came in at a very competitive price point. Granted, when it comes to Cartier, the tanks are where they have their lowest cost watches in general, but they range all the way up, of course. But I just thought, it would make so much sense for the Santos to do it. And then I started looking at this other option after Watches and Wonders happened, and Cartier did not have a new solar powered watch. I just was like, really? I just thought surely they do, and maybe they will. It's sort of like, to do a pinball analogy, it's like, why do you develop a projector system for pinball to display images and you only use it on Stranger Things and you never use it again? Why would you do that? I don't get it. The same thing with watches. I don't understand why you would pour who knows how much in R&D to develop solar technology where you can't even see the solar panels. It looks just like a traditional tank. You don't put it in any other watch. It is Cartier. I guess they can do what they want. Vronkrill says, I have a box that holds 10, and with one out of the box, so that's 11 watches. I'm considering getting another 6-slot case using the 10-slot for cheaper watches, which I still love. And yeah, I bought a six case, and I was fine. And then someone got me for Christmas a 6 case. And then the watches started to grow. They started to breed like little rabbits. And then I did buy another 6 case because then it was like, okay, well, I got these, the novelty watch, 2 of them, 2 people I podcast with. One got me the Spiro Agnew watch, and one got me the Step Right Up Mr. Jones watches arcadey watch. And so it's like, okay, I need a place for those because I don't want to sell them. But those are not watches to be worn all the time. I can. The Spiro Agnew watch is easy to read, but it's a pin lever escapement. It's horribly inaccurate. Even for mechanical, it's really inaccurate. And it's hard to read the Mr. Jones watches. So Step Right Up is difficult to read. Ricochet is difficult to read. And so those sort of watches are more for fun. Like I wear those on the weekend. I don't wear them to work anymore. I only did when I was reviewing them. I did not issue a review on the Spiro Agnew watch because who's going to find one? There, that watch got quit getting made before I was born. But so that's sort of been the logic. But okay, so that's sort of where I've been at. Those were my thoughts, and that's all I had for the stream. I thought about pulling some news, and then I looked at the news, and I was like, I don't want to talk about any of this stuff. So that'll be it for this episode. Next live stream. Well, I don't know for sure what the next one for sure will be. However, I have a variety of people contacted to participate in doodle polls to try and figure out when we will do the next this or that. I had people email in. I had people respond to a post I put on YouTube. I don't do Instagram for the channel, so it's always YouTube posts, which are less popular, clearly. But people gave me watch suggestions. I've pulled from all of those. I have already built all of the tots. All the tots are ready to go. I actually have 7 tots. I have 6 official ones. I normally have done 5, but I've expanded it. Did 6 and then an extra credit one, which is a little weird, fun one. And so it's sort of, that's where my plan is, unless I can't get enough people unified together. We're either going to do it next week or we're going to do it the week after. So expect something early October at the latest for a tot. Takes me a little bit of time to build those out. So, and of course, recruiting all these people to participate, because me just doing the tot with you all might work, but I think it works better when I can play off of other people. So that's sort of the idea. And yes, thank you for tuning in, Neff. BJ says, RIP Watchville. What site do you use for watch news? I usually pull from several. So I will usually check a blog to watch. I'll check Fratello. I will check. I just still often will go and check Hodinkee, though. I don't know what they're doing anymore. And then sometimes, actually, if you have the Chrono 24 app, you can't do it from the website. At least I haven't found it. If someone has a link, like email it to me or something. Through the phone app, though, you can actually load a news tab, and it like pulls from a bunch of the blogs. So that's a really good way. I've found is just to go into Chrono 24 and hop to the news thing, and then I can just scroll really quick, and it says which site it is in the headline, and then I can go on the computer and read it. And where it depends. Sometimes I'll read them on the phone. If I'm putting together a show or something, I need to go to the computer anyway, so I can pull my show notes together and do my links and cite my sources. So sometimes I'll just look at that, and I'll pull a lot of those sites I'm using currently are ones that are in their feed. So those are probably the main 3, though. Outside of that would be a blog to watch, Hodinkee, and Fratello are the main 3 I usually look at. And then pricing information or something I'll Google through Google News. If I think I need to find something, I'm not getting it through one of the main sites. So that's sort of the strategy. I see Jason said no more Hodinkee for me. And I mean, I went today and I clicked on an article which sounded like, oh, this is going to be an interesting discussion. And then I realized, no, they're talking about literally used watches that are all in their shop right at this time. And I don't object to it inherently. Like, it's like if I'm watching Federico, totally get that he's going to open his video. Totally, he's completely transparent about it. I didn't like that the article wasn't under their shop section. It was under their main section, like it was a real article, and then clearly it's an article trying to push their push the watches that they're selling. And so that was just kind of like I struggle to tell what's the shop anymore and just promoting the shop or the insurance and what's real. And of course, with the loss of Jack as editor in chief, I just don't know what's going on with them at this point. I never relied on them a whole lot, but I do like some of their content. Like I still have their podcast subscribed to. But as a news site, it was always hard anyway, because as I wax poetically against Hodinkee, they skew so super ultra luxe. Like it's almost like a flex page. It feels like, and yeah, they'll cover every Tudor because they got to, but we're going to spend all our time talking about, FP Journes and Pateks and just stuff people don't buy. And people like me don't buy. Plebes don't buy. And I get it. I have some very expensive, like a lot of people, they looked at my watch collection would be like, you can't talk like that. You have tens of thousands of dollars in watches. I'm like, yeah, but I'm not. Watches are weird. It's like, again, in pinball, I'm a small player. I have a lot of machines, but I'm not like those big time new in box collectors. So it's just they're in a different swimming pool than I am. So anyway, that will be it. Thank you, BJ. And thank you everyone else for tuning in. I really do appreciate it. And I hope to talk to y'all sometime soon in the future. Take care.